Welcome back to Ride JBI. I'm JB. In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove the front wheel and the front forks from the Stark Varg. Using a T45 socket, this is the first bolt that I'm going to loosen when it comes to removing the front wheel. Doing so is going to release the grip around the axle nut that actually threads inside of the axle lug. It doesn't thread to the axle lug, but it threads to the axle inside of the lug. And by loosening this torque is going to allow us to remove that much easier. Now that this bolt has been loosened, we're going to utilize an Allen number 10. So now what you can see, what I mean by how this threads inside of the axle. A lot of other bikes on the Japanese models, this nut, as you can see on this Kawasaki, it threads on the external threads of the nut on the outside of the lug. So just a little bit different way of doing it. I wouldn't say one is better than the other inherently. So not that we have that one loosened, we're going to go ahead and start loosening the remainder of the bolts. Now I'm actually going to utilize this and thread it back in just a couple threads and use that to help push out our axle. Now this one's sliding in really well and it's pretty easy to come out. Now ahead of time, before we did this, we slid the bike pretty far back on the stand. So that way when we took off the front wheel, the bike went backwards and landed on the rear wheel. If you have your Stark Varg very forward on the stand, when you remove the front wheel, the bike's going to want to come down this way instead. It won't fall off, but it's more awkward way of working on it. I like to slide the axle right back through. It's a safe place to store it. You're not going to get any stuff on it. By stuff, I mean dirt, debris, dust. Next, we're going to utilize a torque to remove the bolts on the fork guards. Now I'm utilizing a long extension just so that way my tool isn't in the way of the video camera as I work on this stuff, and you can see it being unthreaded. As you can see, I've removed all the bolts for the fork guards. We can actually leave these two screws connected to the brake line, and next we're going to move the bolts that hold on the brake caliper. Again, this is a T45. It is the same tool that we use on the front axle pinch bolts here. And it'll also be the same tool we use for the fork triple clamps above. Please take note that I loosened this bolt and now I loosened the next one. If you remove one bolt all the way out and then you go to loosen the other one, the caliper is going to want to try to rotate and it's going to be much harder to take off than it needs to be. So kind of back these out simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, but at the same rate. Cool, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this front wheel, face the caliper out like that, take our brake caliper, and slide it right over, back over our disc. And that is how we'll store that. Cool. Now lastly, we're going to move the forks from the triple clamps. Again, we're still using the Torx 45 tool. We can start with the bottom triple clamps. So again, this top one tight still. All right, so I'm gonna start breaking it loose. There's still tension on the bolt. There's still tension on the clamp. And as I begin to get to the point where it's gonna remove tension, I'm grabbing the fork with my hand, so that way it doesn't just slide out of the triple clamps and land on the ground and possibly hit you in the feet. That's awesome. That means they got a really precise fitment, finish, and machining on the triple clamps that we're dealing with on this Stark Varg. Again, I'm loosening the bolt. I can feel the tension against the clamp loosening. but it's still holding the fork. Now I'm gonna grip the fork with my hand and loosen the bolt completely. And the fork's gonna easily slide on out. If it's ever not easy to slide out, that's gonna mean your triple clamps are possibly twisted opposite of each other. So you need to loosen up your headset, or they could possibly be bent, God, what would it be? Axially, if we're referencing this bore, which would not be good either. But for the most part, your fork should pretty much just slide right out of these clamps. Next, we'll be doing some videos regarding the KYB front forks.